Hello, my name is Austin, and do you want to read the best book of all time? Well, of course you do. Now imagine this, dear viewer, if you could read the best book of all time. This book is called Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler. Darkness at Noon is a novel set in post-revolution Russia. It follows a man named Nicholas Robichov in his imprisonment for a crime he didn't do. Over the book, he spends around 20 days in a prison and his condition gradually worsens, from mild discomfort to full psychological torture. Along the way, he tasks messages to and fro from his two adjacent neighbors and passes information. This book was written by Arthur Koestler and won the Orwell Prize. Arthur Koestler was born in 1905 in Budapest. When he was older, he got a job as a journalist and gained a lot of attention because of his writer style, which was to talk about major topics in an anti-fascist manner. A couple of years later, he joined the Spanish Civil War, where he caught it as a spy and spent 3 months in prison. This is where he got his idea for his best-selling book, Darkness at Noon. Even though he exaggerated most of his tales, even great writers such as George Orwell acknowledged his work. The main character is Nicholas Robichov, and in the beginning of the book he is imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit, which is the main conflict of the book. The rest of the book is one of three things: either him looking on the past and the role he had in the revolutionary, the Russian officers interviewing him to find out if he was plotting treason, or him tapping to his neighbors in his cell. Another character that shows up is his prison neighbor, number 402, who is a prisoner for political reasons and hates Robichov because of his involvement in the Russian Revolution. The theme of the novel is to not blindly follow someone else's instructions without thinking about others and yourself's well-being. The three thematic elements are setting, mood, and conflict. It was quiet in the cell. Robichov heard only the creaking of his steps on the tiles. 6.5 steps to the door, whence they must come to fetch him. 6.5 steps to the window, behind which night is falling. Soon it would be over, but when he asked himself, "For what actually are you dying?" he found no answer. Mr. Arthur Koestler should know something about prison, for he has spent a respectable portion of the past 4 years there. In no case, needless to say, has he been accused of any particular crime. The significance of those quotes are to create an atmosphere fitting for the situation in the book, and also to show that Robichov regrets the decisions of blindly following somebody. I will pay my fare, and because he is so familiar with party thinking, and because he is able to portray so compellingly the psychology of a former communist hero losing his faith. While at first these quotes may seem unconnected, they are in fact very connected. The quote about the fare is talking in both a literal and figurative sense, and how he will pay for his sins against the innocent people's lives he ruined, and how he is realizing his wrongdoing. Darkness at Noon revolves around the central theme of ethics of violence, the problem of whether or what extent a noble end justifies ignorable means. What must one also pay for righteous acts? Was there another measure besides that of reason? Did the righteous man perhaps carry the heaviest debt when weighed by this other measure? These quotes show that the mood is grim and is constantly having people question their side. Overall, I like Darkness at Noon. It may not be the best I've ever read, but it's definitely not the worst. The book's plot jumps between present and past with various flashbacks to times when Robichov was an officer, and how him and his co-workers got along. And the entire book is an emotional roller coaster that will leave anyone wanting to know more about the life of Nicholas Robichov. Various hints and clues are scattered around, and it's up to you, the reader, to put them together and figure out Robichov's past and his involvement in the revolution.
Created using Powtoon.